Welcome to Distancing with the Stars. My name is Eric McLaughlin, and I'm the astronomer for the Rancho Mirage Library and Observatory. In this show, we will be taking tours of a number of different places in the universe, and today we've got a special tour planned for Mars, specifically because the day this is airing is actually the day of opposition. Opposition refers to when two things are on the opposite sides of the sky, roughly forming a straight line passing through the Earth. Typically, it refers to the Sun and some other object, so when we say the opposition of Mars, we are saying that that Mars is on the opposite side of the sky from the Sun. And that is why we are here over the Earth on October 13th, 2020 at roughly 9 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. As we fly to Mars, it is worth noting that Mars has a very similar day-night cycle to the Earth, only being roughly 39 minutes longer. As such, this tour will be focusing on landmarks that are visible at 9 p.m. on the 13th. However, we will take a trip a little bit into the future to see what is currently on the night side of the planet. And as we fly up to the planet now, you'll notice Phobos and Deimos, Mars's two small moons located below and above the planet respectively. Now those moons orbit near the equatorial plane of Mars, so let's rotate our field of view so that way we're oriented a little bit closer to having north on Mars facing up. Now, just because Mars is only about half the diameter of the Earth and about 1/10 the mass of the Earth, that doesn't mean that there has been no activity on the surface. As we descend into the atmosphere, we will head to Elysium Mons, a dramatic volcano that is about 12.6 kilometers tall relative to the surrounding plains and has a diameter of around 240 kilometers. The summit caldera itself is around 14 kilometers in diameter, which makes it often compared to a shield volcano on Earth called Emikosi, located in Chad, and that is, again, a comparison made largely because the summit and calderas are similar in size. However, Elysium Mons is around 3.5 times larger in diameter and 6 times taller than that volcano. And as we swing around, we can see Elysium Chasma, a giant canyon around 130 kilometers long. That is likely a large fracture from the expansion and contraction of the surrounding terrain. Now we will head south into Elysium Planitia, where we will find a nice little lander by the name of the Interior Exploration Using Seismic Investigations, Geodesy, and Heat Transport Mission, or the InSight mission for short. Built by Lockheed Martin Space Systems and managed by JPL, this mission's goal is to study the deep interior of Mars, and it actually landed back in November of 2018, and it actually has a mass of around 358 kilograms. It is about 6 meters wide with the solar panels deployed, which comes out just under 20 feet, and it is worth noting those two little instruments sitting right on the ground in front of it. The dome you see there is actually a wind and thermal protection layer over a seismometer that actually is incredibly sensitive. In 2019 alone, that seismometer actually detected over 450 Mars quakes. Now, despite atmospheric pressure on Mars being below 1% that of atmospheric pressure on the Earth, wind actually can interfere with the performance of this instrument, so it's very good that they have that dome over it. The other structure set near the probe is actually the starting rig for a thermal probe referred to as the mole. The aim of the mole is to get about 3 meters below the surface of Mars to get a good temperature reading of the planet itself. However, it's been quite a saga to get this 40 centimeter pile driver to actually make its way down. Those efforts are still ongoing, so we'll just have to keep an eye on this project to see how it goes. Now, on the southern edge of Elysium Planitia is a great crater called Gale Crater. It's around 154 kilometers in diameter, and it formed about 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. And right in the center of that crater is Iallus Mons, better known as Mount Sharp. Measuring 550 meters above the crater floor, it is actually higher than Mount Rainier in Washington state. Given the crater's age, location, and elevation, it was thought that this site would be a good place to search for evidence of a past lake. And as such, when we were looking for a place to send the Curiosity rover, this site won out. Launched in November of 2011 and landing in Gale Crater on August 5th of 2012, the Curiosity rover is a 900 kilogram car-sized rover that is powered by a radiothermoelectric generator, a bit of radioactive material that generates a bit of heat that can then be converted into electricity. Enough electricity to not only move the vehicle, but also use its instruments and even fire a laser to score the surface of nearby features. The mission's goals include investigating the Martian climate and geology, assessing whether the landing site ever had suitable conditions for microbial life, including water, as well as planetary habitability studies as prep for human missions coming up later. Having surpassed its initial 2-year mission, which has been extended indefinitely, it has traveled around 23 kilometers as of July of this year. The success of this mission and its dramatic sky crane style landing has led to another similar probe being launched towards Mars. This rover is actually on its way there right now, heading to a location known as Yezero Crater. Named for a village in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the word Yezero basically means lake in many Slavic languages. And when you see images of this site, you can see how it has earned that name, because it looks like there was a dramatic outflow channel into this crater, and it likely was then flooded with water. And as such, this particular site has been of interest for quite some time. However, the terrain at this site is rather imposing for landing a spacecraft, and that is why it has not been landed at to this date. Nevertheless, through the experience we have gained through other missions, and through advancements in technology, we are now ready to attempt a landing at this site. And that is precisely what's going to be happening in just a few months. On February 18th, 2021, the Perseverance rover will attempt to land in a similar fashion to the Curiosity rover. This makes sense because they are a very similar design. However, Perseverance will have a rather different set of instruments and another little friend aboard. Perseverance will actually have the first rotorcraft taken to another planet. A small coaxial bladed rotorcraft by the name of Ingenuity will serve as a bit of a scout for the mission. Hopefully all will go well for Perseverance and Ingenuity as they touch down on February 18th, but again, the success of that mission and the success of Curiosity, they owe their success in some part due to missions that came before. And in a crater far to the southeast across Elysium Planitia, a crater known as Gusev Crater, resides one of those predecessors. As we fly in from the south, you will notice Ma'adim Valles, that winding channel that flows into Gusev Crater. That is one of the largest outflow channels on Mars, and it is actually larger than the Grand Canyon, running 700 kilometers long and being 20 kilometers wide and 2 kilometers deep in places. Ma'adim Valles is actually named after the Hebrew word for Mars, which basically refers to the fact that the planet is red. Once again, this valley outflows into Gusev Crater, the home of the Mars Exploration Rover A, better known as Spirit. Together with Opportunity, these two rovers were able to do an immense amount of research on opposite sides of Mars. With the design intent of working for 90 Martian days or sols, Spirit actually maintained operational communication with Earth for 2,208 sols. Rather than a sky crane maneuver, Spirit and Opportunity landed with the use of airbags and bounced their way onto the surface until they were able to open up a nice little pedal structure to drive off. Spirit and Opportunity both were able to discover many new and interesting things on Mars through their journeys across the rusty sands. While twins in many ways, Opportunity and Spirit had at least one difference between the two of them, and it's a difference in a similarity. They were both actually also memorials. On the back of Spirit's high-gain antenna is a plaque remembering the astronauts we lost aboard Space Shuttle Columbia. And likewise, Opportunity has a similar plaque remembering those lost aboard Shuttle Challenger. Now, as we zoom out to see a view of much of the planet we've visited so far, we could visit many more places and many more landers on this side of the planet. However, I would like to now change our focus to some more large-scale structures and then transition to the other side of the planet. you can see clearly a distinction between the northern and southern hemispheres of Mars, and that has to do largely with elevation. The northern half of the planet is at a much lower elevation than the southern half, with one big exception. The lowest point on the planet Mars actually lies within one of the largest impact craters in the solar system. The Hellas Basin, or Hellas Planitia, has a diameter of around 2,300 kilometers, which is roughly an equivalent distance of a straight line extending from Rancho Mirage to Minneapolis, Minnesota. As it is one of the lowest elevation points on Mars, it also has the highest atmospheric pressure, and with that comes some interesting things. In theory, given sufficiently high temperatures, you could actually have liquid fresh water stable at the surface at this point. However, the Hellas Basin is not exactly wet. It is actually quite dry, and there is a lot of dust there. In fact, a surprisingly large number of the global-scale dust storms that occur on Mars actually originate in this basin. That may in fact be due to its lower altitude and therefore higher pressures, allowing a difference in temperature of the air near the surface to cause more wind and kick up that dust. This is why the southern summer is also considered the dusty season on Mars. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to take a look at the other side of the planet, and as such, we need to get to about 12 hours into the future. So let's go ahead and park ourselves right near the terminator, that dividing line between the day side and the night side of a planet or moon or other body. And from this point, we will get a good view of sunrise from a good swath of the planet. But instead of watching the sunrise, we're going to be watching the ground where the sun is rising. This will allow us to see a lot more of the surface detail because of the shadows that will be cast at that time. So let's go ahead and start time moving forward, and as the planet passes beneath us, the area we are looking at will descend from the highlands of Terra Sabella. We will spot a 460 kilometer diameter crater named Shaya Perelli Crater. Not only was it the attempted landing site of the European Space Agency's Shaya Perelli mission, it is also known as being the destination for the fictional character Mark Watney from Andy Weir's book The Martian. As we pass over Meridiani Planum, we can also see the final resting place of the Mars exploration rover Opportunity. Oppie happened to end up stopping right near Yezero Crater, and it did so after an incredible journey that lasted over 5,300 Martian days. Its journey came to an end during the previous southern summer when a dust storm blotted out the sun for the rover, thus preventing it from generating sufficient electricity to continue communication with Earth. As we leave Meridiani Planum, we can spot the terrain getting a bit rougher and with a lot more indentations, and that is the end of the Valles Marineris. The Valles Marineris is an incredible canyon, one that stretches 4,000 kilometers, roughly the length of Europe, which in the sense of Mars actually covers about 1/5 the circumference of the planet. Its depth is around 7 kilometers deep relative to the surrounding terrain, and one idea for its formation is that it is due to the swelling of the Tharsis area, which caused the crust where the valley is to collapse. The main portion of the valley ends at Sinai Planum and Syria Planum with a lot of chaotic terrain. As we leave behind the Valles Marineris, the three peaks of the Tharsis Montes come up over the horizon. From north to south, they are Ascraeus Mons, Pavonis Mons, and Orissa Mons. Larger and taller than Elysium Mons, these three mountains dominate the landscape. However, they are still dwarfed by the highest mountain in the solar system. Olympus Mons is a large extinct shield volcano with a height of 21 kilometers, 2.5 times Mount Everest's height as measured from sea level. The view from its northern edge is quite impressive, right atop those very steep slopes. Looking in the caldera at its peak, you will see at least 6 overlapping calderas. While it would be impressive to see activity at this peak, for the sake of future explorers, I'm rather pleased that this is an extinct volcano. Now, having a bit more context for the features on this side of the planet, let's go ahead and head to the South Pole of Mars. As I mentioned, this is southern summer right now, so the South Polar region is in constant daylight, just like what happens on the Earth in the southern summer. However, the ice caps on Mars are a bit different than the ice caps on the Earth. While there is a lot of water ice there is also a lot of carbon dioxide ice. In fact, since most of Mars's atmosphere is carbon dioxide, having temperatures cold enough to freeze the atmosphere has quite an impact. In particular, 25 to 30% of Mars's atmosphere can completely freeze out onto the pole that is experiencing winter and continuous darkness. In 2018, near the previous opposition of Mars, it was announced that there is likely a lake beneath the surface of Mars. However, it is worth noting that there's still some debate as to the nature of this radar reflection, whether or not it truly represents a fully fledged body of water, or if it is actually more a sludge or some type of other buildup. In any case, it is likely filled with a lot of salts because it is still so cold there that in order for there to be any kind of liquid, it would need to have its freezing point dropped dramatically to be able to be in a liquid state. And salt can do just that. Now this year that signal was confirmed, but also some signals of some smaller lakes around the original have also been detected. The original is about 30 kilometers long, and 3 more signals have also been detected. So there may be 3 smaller lakes around the original. Again, if they're lakes at all. Now as we close, let's swing on back above the north side of the planet and zoom out until we can get a good view of the inner solar system. From this view, we can see just how Mars, Earth, and the Sun are in a nice bit of alignment. This is why the period around Mars opposition is a great time to be looking at Mars through a telescope. So, if you have one, definitely try and get a look out at it. We certainly are. Perhaps one day humans will set foot on Mars and perhaps even call it home. Until then, it is still a fascinating world with vast open areas with all sorts of interesting things to see. In this video, we wanted to visit a number of places on Mars, but really just wanted to pique your interest in the planet itself. If you'd like to learn more about the planet and other robotic missions to the Red Planet, feel free to click on the link in the video now. With that, thank you for joining us, and thank you to the Library and Observatory Foundation for making this possible. Keep on looking up.